Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us in another virtual Lunch and Learn. One today that I'm really excited about, and I'm excited about it for a couple reasons. One, Jain Logic is such an impressive software and something that you can really use to reduce costs and increase yields on your farm. So that's always exciting and interesting to me from a water management perspective. Again, I'm Richard Restucia, Vice President of Water Management Solutions at Jain Irrigation. But the other reason I'm really excited is our presenters today. Today we've got David Lindsay back, and a few weeks ago, we had David, and he's such a dynamic speaker. And as I said then, and I still say it today, he's got one of the best can-do attitudes of everybody I've met. When I think about David and also our other presenter, Richard Gates, today, I think, if I was going to take my 401k and invest it all into a farm of any size, these would be two of the guys that I'd be calling first to get some advice about what I was doing. And so David with his can-do attitude, and then Richard Gates, who was one of the co-founders of PureSense, and he's been at Jain for, about 5 years now, but working in ag technology since the early 2000s. And when can you find somebody with that kind of experience? And the other thing I really appreciate about these guys is that if you're a Jain Logic customer, if you're using Jain monitoring and control products, this is part of your support team. So you've got somebody with a real can-do attitude. They both do, and the knowledge and experience from both of them is just exceptional. So that's really the main reason why I'm so excited about today. So with that, welcome everybody, and I'm going to turn it over to David Lindsay. David.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Can you, is my screen shared? Are we good on that side? I think I saw the green window go away.
Nope, we've got the Jain monitoring and control deck up right now.
Excellent. Okay, so today we kind of wanted to do things a little differently. I wanted to try out how, give everybody a view of how we would handle a normal customer interaction. I'll be playing the part of the customer working on a real live site. The owner is present. We're going to make some seasonal boundary adjustments, but the same process is really in place for setting up the original boundaries. Let me switch slides here. So we're going to cover a monitoring control overview, which is kind of what we're doing now, setting the boundaries, and then we're going to roll into setting the alerts based on those boundaries, and then probably touch on just setting off the wall alerts, anything you might want to see outside of a normal boundary. And then we'll hopefully have enough time to do some questions and answer. That's the side I really want to get into. There's our monitor control system overview. This is one of our favorite pictures. Just shows the variety of what we're capable of doing. And we're going to roll into Jain Logic boundaries. This is what your dashboard looks like. And then we'll go into the boundaries, which you see on the right are already set. You see the colors, the blocks, they change based on the moisture levels in the field and what we have those boundaries set at those depths.
Hey, David, could I just interrupt a second? Yeah. So this is for Jain Logic users, right?
Yes, sir.
And what do you mean with a boundary? Are you talking about a block? Or are you talking about a section? What are we talking about here?
That's a great question. So boundaries are set. So if you look at this slide right here, you see the root zone sum between 12 and 28 inches is currently at 122.52 moisture units, and it's showing an orangish color. So it's getting dry. The boundaries were the high, which was the wet, and the low, which is the dry. We're somewhere in between there right now. And that's what you need to really adjust, especially because the trees are getting older and they're going to need more water this season. That was a sum that was set, or a boundary that was set on a zone. We also can go down to each individual sensor and set zone or boundaries as well. We're going to cover both of those today.
Okay, so what you're really talking about, the boundaries in which the water is penetrating the soil is the key here, is that correct?
It's more the quantity that's at that depth or within that zone. The penetration comes from the infiltration widget, and we will definitely touch on that later because there's a lot more involved with that because you have to set your root zone, and that takes a little more time.
Okay, great. And I just want to remind everybody, as you have questions, if you type them into the Zoom group chat, I'll be asking those questions of everybody. Most of you are on mute, except for our presenters, of course. So if you'll just ask questions to the chat, I'll be sure to get those across to our presenters. So thanks, David.
Okay. The second half, we're going to cover the alerts. We'll start off by using the current boundaries and setting an alert, which makes it really easy for you. You don't have to worry about it. You know what your bounds are set at. I want to be alerted when that boundary is hit. We'll show you how to do that. And then we'll also probably roll into showing you how to set, like I said, just a standard alert, maybe for wind speed, wind direction, even frost. But we'll probably keep it to soil moisture since that's our topic here. And then we'll go into some questions. So this is a live view of the Jameson Ranch. Richard, what I want to do here is I want to go in and I want to set my boundaries on my Jameson Ranch. So I'm guessing you're going to have me open a chart.
You're absolutely right. Double click, open the chart.
Right.
So we're going to adjust the bounds for this irrigation season. These trees have aged a year. So the bounds we set last summer may not quite be perfect. Let's do 1 month, David.
Okay.
We'll see the data and we'll see the bounds the way they're set. Now, and you can see at the bottom of the screen, you have your pressure devices, and you can see that when the pressure is on, you get a jump in your soil moisture probe sensors from the sum, which is the 12 to 28 sensor, and then all the way down to roughly 32, and then it kind of flattens out. So a lot of this is how long you've irrigated for and your soil type. This might be in my mind, without actually knowing, I'd say it's probably a denser soil. Maybe there's clay as you get down to the lower levels. So what I'd like to do right now is just adjust the bounds. And sorry, I've actually got to move the view I'm looking at here. Oops. How can I move this over there? There we go. Adjust the bounds, and you click on the little ellipsis. There you go, to the right, and then that'll open up where you set the bounds. Perfect. And let's wait to see the chart come up.
Now this chart's pulling raw data, correct? Yeah, I think it's
correct. Yeah, that's why so it's pulling a reading every 15 minutes, basically. And it can take a few seconds to pull up all the data. So I think because these trees are another year older from when these were set last irrigation season, that the trees are going to pull down the water a little bit faster. We probably want to raise the upper limit there. And by the way, this is so easy to do. You might want to get in. Right now, it's only May. By the time the middle of June rolls around, you might want to do this a second time. Okay. Pulling water faster. But let's just up the wet number a tiny bit. So let's make it 145. And I'm happy to leave the lower number where it is for the time being. But that, again, might be something. There you go. There's a slight pause there. Save that.
So it looks,
yeah. So now you can see that in the actual chart, the upper bound has been raised a little bit, the bottom of the upper bound, which just means that you're going to, you would be applying a little more water before you hit the upper bound, which, and again, a year-old tree, you probably want to do that. Now, the reason this is important is water, especially in California, has become a very expensive thing, and overwatering is just as bad for the tree as underwatering. And you don't want to overwater because in some areas in California, you're going to be paying $400 to your water district for a little bit of water. And so in an almond orchard where you need like 35 to 40 inches of acre feet, 3 to 4 acre feet per year, 10% overwatering can be an expensive proposition. So it's pretty important that you sort of what we call drive between the lines, drive between the upper bound and the lower bound. And David, I'm sorry, could you do like 1 week? I just want to see as we zoom in. There you go.
And Richard, I just want to be sure, what you mentioned trees, we're looking at almonds here, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. A nice thing about doing this presentation with David is he's actually physically been to the site. So when questions like that come up, he can answer them. And so now you can see we're sort of driving between the lines. And by the way, at the bottom again, you can see it looks like they just started irrigating again based on the pressure PSI. So it went down a little bit there, and then now it's back up. They may have, if they only have one pump, they may have switched it to another field for a while, but they've started to irrigate in this field again. And you can already see at the 4-inch and 8-inch and a little bit at the 12-inch level that the water sensor, it's going up. So they're putting down a little bit of water.
Yeah, yeah. So in this case too, we already have a boundary set at 16 inches, and it looks like I'm just getting down to the drier level.
Yeah, but I'm sure within about an hour or two, we'd see the 16-inch level kicking up also. There's kind of a bubble of water that goes through the around the probe, and it slowly filters down to the lower levels. It doesn't go down there immediately. You have to sort of get the upper level wet before it starts going down to the next level.
Okay, so I want to adjust my boundary at 16 inches. Do I just go back to the same?
Go to the 16-inch, yeah. Go to the same ellipsis, and can we pull this into 1 month again? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I just want to look at this. Yeah, I'm actually thinking maybe we should lower the lower bound a little bit. Maybe make that 18.
Okay.
This is so easy and fast to do that you can do it. I have some customers that do this monthly to just meet their water needs for the coming month. And certainly June and July are going to be, the trees are going to be taking up a lot more water than they do in April and May. Right?
Okay, so I've just readjusted my boundaries for the season.
Yes.
All right, that was pretty easy.
These bounds, David, if you are.
All right, so now I want to go back in and I want to set my alert for that lower boundary. So at 16 inches, I want to see, I want to get a text message alert.
All right, and I just wanted to show you one other thing. There's an existing alert set, and I just want to, I want to emphasize that we can set an alert on any sensor in our system that's a physical sensor. Could you go and highlight the weather station, please? That one. Oh, I thought there was an alert set here. There's not. Then let's do what you want to do, David, and set the 16-inch alert. Go back to Jameson Ranch.
Yeah, so but before we get into that, Richard, I have another question, and that is, so what are some reasons why people would want to change these boundaries? You mentioned that you might be watering more. What's a trigger for this? How would I know? How would I even know? What would I be looking at? What would I be thinking?
I like to do this. Really, if the tree is mature, if it's a 10-year-old tree, for example, then you may want to just look at what you did last irrigation season and were you happy with your ROI, with the number of almonds you produced. And so you might want to just not touch the bound at all. However, I happen to know that this field is a younger field. And so the trees every year through the season get bigger. And then at a certain point when they're maybe 4 years old to 5 years old, they're going to start producing nuts. The nuts take up more water than the leaves. And then for the next 4 or 5 years, you're going to get more and more nuts. And so you want to adjust your bounds. So because you do want to consume, you want to put down more water because the trees are consuming more water. You don't want to let the tree go into a wilt state. And you don't want to have any sort of dry down until it's time for harvest. So that's.
Yeah, so thank you. Now you mentioned ROI, right? And so how does this add value and ROI to what I'm doing?
Again, it's one of those things where too much water is just as bad for the amount of produce you're going to get as too little water. I once worked with a customer. This was in the early days of PureSense. He had 3 fields. 2 of them he was watering perfectly. The third one he was overwatering, and he actually had Phytophthora. So he was spending a lot of money on chemicals. The trees were stunted. And so when we went out to his field and looked, we just suggested, let's put some soil moisture probes here. And within a matter of about a month, he realized I'm putting down too much water. By the second season, by watching the boundaries in his chart, the response of the soil moisture probe, he didn't even have to apply chemical anymore. And I believe it's, I want to say it's copper sulfate to prevent Phytophthora. I haven't thought about it in a long time. So there's a lot of good reasons to monitor the amount of water you're putting down. You don't want to get to a wilt point and you don't want to get to a saturation point. One can damage, they can both damage the tree. Saturation point is probably a waste of money and water. And also electricity. You're probably running your pumps on diesel or electricity. That costs money also.
Yeah, so really even a 10% difference, right, can really add up to a lot especially when we're talking almonds and a decent sized operation, right?
Yeah, I've had some customers that anecdotally will say, I watched the field, I watched the soil moisture probe, and over a period of 2 or 3 summers, their yield will go up a few hundred pounds per acre. So they were pretty, and they're saving money in electricity. So they're pretty happy.
Well, as a customer, that makes me very happy now.
Right.
David and I have big dreams to retire to an almond orchard in Northern California when we're both old enough. So.
Right. All right. All right. So I want to set a boundary here, or I mean, I want to set an alert here. So I just, do I configure?
Go ahead.
Right
just
here?
hit on configured.
Okay.
We've already set the bound. So let's set the alert based on the bound. And that way, next year when we change the bound, or next time we change the bound, the alert will automatically be changed. So first, enter a name of this, a name for the alert.
Well, let me ask you, in this situation, would it be, I mean, I know I can set both, but let's say, do I want to set a lower and upper boundary for a wetness? So
you might want to, if you want to drive between the lines and know when it's too wet or when it's getting wet and getting dry, we can set both. A lot of people set just the high alert because they're more aware of when the their water needs go on.
Okay.
But set both. Again, we can alert in both directions. So high alert. So yeah, and then we've already highlighted the site, so this will be the only thing in the pull down. And then click upper because this is an alert you want to get when your water goes up. And then select the measurement. And in this case, it'll be the 16-inch sensor. And then just click use current bound. That will automatically load the threshold value with whatever the current bound is.
Okay.
And then, and now, yeah, so now let's see what lucky person is going to get woken up to get this. There, friend of David. And click the plus sign to add it. And then you have your choice of text message, email, or voice, or all three.
Okay.
So, all right, Randy's going to get a text. Is there anyone else, David? We need to have a second.
Is it possible to add somebody to this list that's not currently in the dropdown?
Absolutely. Just click on new contact.
New contact.
Right there. Yeah. And then you can add a name, a last name. So yeah, great. There you go. And then just your mobile number or however you want to get alerted. And just click add. So that's someone that is not a user of the system. They can't get in and look at anything, but they will get this alert. And a lot of people do this for frost alert. They want their irrigation guy or their field guy to get the frost alert so that they can stay asleep.
Oh, that's excellent to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to recap here, Richard, we set boundaries that we want the water moisture level to stay between, right? A high level and a low level, right? And we want to drive between the lines.
Yes.
And if the water doesn't stay between those lines, we don't detect moisture between those levels, then somebody gets an alert. And it can be the Jain Logic user, or it can be multiple people that get that alert, correct?
Correct. I forget there is some limit, but the limit's like, I don't know, 25 people or something like that. But yeah, so basically, yeah. So lucky David and lucky Randy. Oh, and David, one other thing, you get to message text. So if you wanted to add a little thing here of the field's getting wet or something like that, and then message text preview will show you the, yeah, so we default to all these things. And then you can add a little bit after threshold right in somewhere or after the word period. Yeah, there you go. And then that will show you there's a preview of the text.
Okay, very well.
You know what you're getting. And then
that way I can customize it if somebody doesn't quite understand the lingo that it's
correct.
factories
Yeah.
in. Okay.
Always don't forget to save. You've just done a couple minutes worth of work. You want to save this. And of course you and I can go in later on and delete it. We'll add Richard, we'll substitute Richard's name for your name. So he'll always, the Jameson Ranch is getting too wet.
So the other thing I'm wondering about is if I've got multiple fields and multiple soil moisture sensors, how do I know that this alert is for which field?
It clearly says, you can see in the text message preview, it says the name of the customer, the name of the ranch, which is the site name in this case, it's called Jameson Ranch. And so, and you could add you could add your own text to say whatever you want, but our default is we'll pick up the customer name and the site name. And that should be obvious when you get the text message which site it is for. And you're right, we have people that, actually a really common thing this time of year is an alert on the pressure going on or off. I have a couple growers that they've got 22 sites. They have an alert each time this pressure goes on or off for each of the sites. So they're getting a lot of alerts, but that's the way they want it. They're pretty happy with it.
All right, excellent. I look forward to seeing that alert.
I guess if they keep irrigating, you'll see it soon.
Right. Okay, I think, yeah, that just satisfied my requirements.
Yeah, so David, I just see the dashboard now went to one active, one configured alert. That's what we just set, and that's where we're seeing.
Right.
And you have the ability to, if you want an inactivated alert, there's just a checkbox that is active or uncheck the box, and then it would become not active. You certainly don't want to get a frost alert in the middle of July, so you may want to make that not active for certain times of the year. There's an audit, it's actually over on the left a little bit. There was a checkbox, David.
Right here.
There. That would make it not active. There's also an option of your quiet period. A lot of people do this for frost alerts. Because this is an electronic system, you can get an electronic hiccup. You don't need to get a frost alert in the middle of July. And that would just be a false alarm. So you can set a quiet period of, I don't want any frost alerts between June 1st and February 1st, because they don't mean much to me. Oh, and a max allowed, and by the way, if you ever have questions as you're doing this, hover over a question mark, it gives you a brief description. So a max allowed change, and again, if all of a sudden there was an electronic hiccup and our soil moisture jumped to 100%, you don't want to get an alert on that. It's probably just electronic noise. And so you can say max allowed change 5% or 10%, and you won't get any alarms for the odd spikes that occasionally happen because it is electronics.
Yeah. So can we say there's a best MU for almonds, or is that like a lot of irrigation questions that are answered with, that depends?
It depends on soil, age of the trees, the amount of sun they're getting. There's a lot of depends. If anyone in the audience is interested in a deeper dive into what an MU is and what you want to do with it, I can send a document. So get an email address and I'll send that out later, Richard.
Okay. All right. That's great. Now, David, why did you think this was important to Jain Logic users and potential users to show this today?
Well, two reasons. One is I think we're updating our database with some valuable information that we could send this on later on at the beginning of every season to remind people how to make seasonal adjustments. The other side is that I want to continue doing these, and I want to see what everybody thinks about it, especially our current users and future users. There's a lot of tools in Jain Logic that I find when I have interactions with customers that they are unaware of. I give them as much information as they can handle. I can't talk to everybody every day, so I'm trying to reach a broader group to show things like this and how to set them. And we'd like to go further and dive deep into things. We might have smaller showings, but we have a scheduler tool that 80% of the customers I talk to don't even know what it is. And I would love at some point to go into that and show everybody how to use that, because it's hugely powerful.
Hey, David, there's one more thing I wanted to cover and just show briefly the irrigation widget. Could you go back to the widgets?
Yes, sir.
So along with opening
which one did you want?
Pardon?
Sorry, go ahead.
Along with opening a chart so you can see the sensor levels that Jameson Ranch, could you put the cursor over the irrigation widget there, David?
The infiltration?
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
So the pale green bar is the root zone sum that we set. And again, these are younger trees, so we've set it to be 12 to, I think, 24 as I remember. And then the pale blue line is how long you irrigated for. The dark blue lines are how deep the water went. So these people watering here are doing a pretty decent job. The water's going down to the root zone, but not through it. And again, in California, there's all sorts of regulations about how deep you can put your water when you're fertigating. So it's a lot of people love the widget. It's a very good, quick pick. Thank you. To show how you're doing as far as your root zone and how much water and how deep your water's going. And again, in California, everyone I know fertigates, so that shows you also how deep your liquid fertilizer is going. Thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah. So guys, I know things that I do every day that are just repetitive for me. I do it after a few days and then I catch on and it's easy, right? Because I'm doing it every day. setting boundaries I might not be doing every day, right? Probably won't be setting boundaries every day. So if I don't want to rewatch this video, how do I get help doing this? What's the best way to get help?
I think David and I both do this. I get customers calling me to do this all the time, and I'm always willing to give them an online lesson. Lots of times they're this time of year, they get busy in the field. They have labor things that they have to worry about. They have a lot of things on their mind. I'm happy to do this for a customer if they just call me and ask me, or send me an email and ask me. I also generate reports for customers. We wanted to give great customer service, and I think David and I are both, we try to stay on top of customer needs and requests.
And David, same for you?
Yes, absolutely. I'm always available to tackle any question, even, you know, deeper than this. I love what I do, and I love the customer interaction, because again, it goes back to that, you know, that 80%, you know, that are power users. You know, there's a large percentage of people that don't know exactly how to do this. And I want them to get their money's worth out of this tool, because it's there.
Yeah. Okay. And what about fertigation? Can we set a boundary like that for soil? Can we set that a fertigation boundary as well?
You can, if we set, so we set it at 16 because it was sort of the middle of our root zone sum. So you could think of that as the same thing. You don't want your, when you're fertig, you might want to watch it a little bit more closely, or tighten up your alert a little bit for when you're fertigating. And you might want to set a lower limit at that point. When it goes below, you don't want it to go below the lower part of the bound. So maybe rather than 16, we just pick 16, but maybe we want to set it at 20 or 24. And then you'd know that you don't want your fertilizer to go deeper than that. And you'll get an alert when it gets that deep. Oh, the other thing is setting it at 16, you'll get the alert. Remember, even if you turned off your water right at that moment, it's still going to continue to go down. So a lot of this is you as a grower want to know your soil type and how fast the water goes through the soil.
And as you can see, when I hit the view button on the infiltration widget, it gives me a much better view here. And it literally shows me that I ran this irrigation set on 4/17/20, 46.6 hours, and my max depth obtained was 24 inches. Time to depth was 8.5 hours, and my infiltration rate was 2.8 inches per hour. So with that knowledge right there, you can calculate when you should be turning your water off. So even if you're not using the alerting function, which is the easiest way to do it, you can figure out by looking here, how long did it take the water to get there, and then set your irrigation schedule to run as such. I know the current schedule we're running is set for 46 hours, I believe, and because we've already targeted 24 as our max depth. And that's why the boundaries, that green line you see right here in the infiltration widget, that green space, that's our root zone we're targeting.
By the way, I wanted to say one more thing about alerts. This was early days at Pure Sense. I have a grower that was very hands-on. During the summer, he never ever took vacation. And when he realized that he could get an alert or see a chart from anywhere in the world, for the first time in a decade, he took his family on a summer vacation. He was going to Hawaii. He gets there so on Monday morning, the first thing he does is go, hey, I told those people to turn the water on at 6 a.m. I never got the alert. What's going on? And he pulls up his chart and looks at it and goes, they haven't turned the water on. So I was told this story later. He calls the irrigator for that particular field, who was a younger guy in the main office flirting with one of the younger women that worked there. And so he answers his cell phone. It's the boss. And the boss is going, how come you didn't turn the water on? And the guy, and I was told this by the office manager a while later, she goes, he's looking around like he's on candid camera. And he's wondering how the boss knew that he wasn't out in the field. And so within a few days, everyone in all the field hands knew if the boss said turn on at 6 a.m., it got turned on at 6 a.m. because he could see it even though he was 10,000 miles away. A lot of other reasons to set alerts.
Yeah, that's a fantastic story, right? Because as we're all learning how to do more with less today for various reasons, technology will solve some of these problems. And that's a great example of a place where it can solve the problem.
Yeah, he said the biggest asset of looking at Jain Logic is the free time it gives him. He no longer has to drive 3 hours to get to a field to inspect it. He can do it from his kitchen while he's having breakfast.
Right. And for the alerts, even if I'm not signed into Jain Logic, I'll get them. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
So again, I can be anywhere as long as I've got my communication device with me, and I'll be alerted to what's going on. I can do remote management.
You can do remote management. And then of course the application is browser based. You can run it on your cell phone. You may get an alert and go, wow, why did I get this? And then you can immediately look at the widgets and or your charts on your cell phone and go, oh, here's why I got it. And address the situation or call someone to deal with the situation.
Okay, great. Well, listen, you guys have been really helpful today. Talk about hitting a specific subject and giving some hands-on training to where we all have a better understanding and a better ability to use Jain logic as a result. That's been fabulous. I really do appreciate that. David, Lindsay, anything, any final thoughts you want to give to the viewers out there?
No, just the biggest one is there's no such thing as a dumb question. In 23 years of active duty Navy, that's the one thing I learned that's probably the most important.
So we'll be sending a follow-up email this afternoon with a recording of this, and we'll have your email address on there so people can call you or email you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, great. And how about you, Richard? Any final thoughts for us this afternoon?
Just please include my email address and my cell phone number, Richard, so people can contact me directly if they want to.
Okay. Well, like I said early on, you know, if I had two guys I was going to call to help me out if I was getting started, or even if I was experienced, these would be the two guys I'd be calling. So you guys did a great job today. Thank you. And thanks for being so open to getting those support calls. Thanks everybody for joining today. And we really appreciate you being a part of this. And like I said, we're all learning how to do more with less, and we're really in this thing together. And we're trying to show that with some good education on Wednesdays and Fridays for these virtual lunch and learns. And we appreciate you being a part of that. Hope you all have a great weekend, and we'll catch up with you next week then. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.